The idea of somebody who systematically throws or uncovers every layer of what he's surrounded with comfort-wise, from personal relationships to religion to questioning the whole situation. Someone dissecting his own ability to relate to other people or have anything to believe in. This is a quote from Trent Reznor in an interview by Karl Hammerschmidt for Hot Metal magazine in April 1994, referring to the theme of the downward spiral. The Downward Spiral is one of my top albums of all time, and also just a general fan favorite, probably some of Nine Inch Nails' best and most beloved and well-known work. A listener's first exposure to the album might be through the album art itself, made by Russell Mills, titled Wound, which is, according to Russell, made of plaster, acrylics, oils, rusted metals, insects, moths, blood, mine, wax, varnishes, and surgical bandaging on a wooden panel, which I think is a perfect encapsulation for the theme of the album itself, pain and self-destruction, raw and unfiltered, loud, angry, and without limits. The production and sound of the Downward Spiral was different from previous Nine Inch Nails works. While the band's, or rather Trent Reznor's first studio album, Pretty Hate Machine, had rather upbeat yet simple synth-pop style, the band's second studio release, Broken, had more aggressive and harsh in-your-face sound. The Downward Spiral was more experimental, emotional, and had deeper, more in-depth sound. I love both Pretty Hate Machine and Broken dearly, but I think the Downward Spiral compared to Nine Inch Nails' earlier music has something truly special when it comes to how the album really paved the way for their signature sound and future work. I think it's a really defining piece of what makes Nine Inch Nails what it is. Definitely what you might recommend first to someone who wants to get into the band. Before I start this off, I'd like to give a disclaimer that I have never made a video like this before. This is my first, I guess you could say, video essay, and I'm not that experienced with researching, writing, or editing at all. I just made this because I'm passionate about this album and thought it would be fun to make a video about it and just gush about my interests and have fun. But I did try my best to make this video special. It's big to me. I worked pretty hard on it, and the album, to me, is very special and means a lot, so I wanted to give back. Sorry if this video just kinda sucks. I'm really new to this, but I really hope you enjoy it. It's kind of directed to newer fans since it's going to be covering some pretty surface level stuff, but I still tried to make it appealing to anyone. I hope you enjoy. I'm planning on maybe making some more videos like this in the future, so if you have any criticism or advice or anything, let me know. Let's take a look at the Downward Spiral and what I think makes it so remarkable. The creation of the Downward Spiral bloomed from a difficult time in Trent Reznor's life. Struggling with depression, drug addiction, and the overall stress of performing and pushing stuff out for a newfound audience, he wanted a way to vent out his struggles with art. According to the Downward Spiral's Wikipedia page, lame source, I know, Reznor conceived of the Downward Spiral after Nine Inch Nails' run in the lineup of the Lollapalooza festival tour, feeling increasingly alienated and disinterested. The band's concerts were known for the radical onstage dynamic in which members acted aggressively, injured themselves, destroyed instruments, and polluted stages. At this point in his life, Trent was obviously not in a healthy spot at all, especially mentally, and he wanted to do something about it, or rather, with it. On the Downward Spiral, Reznor's anguish and vehemence can be heard immediately on the album's opening track. Mr. Self-Destruct is a loud, fast-paced, and exciting track. It starts off the album with the message drilled into the protagonist's head that he is not in control. Someone who's dealt with depression, it really does take a hold on everything. Even with outside help, of which I needed a lot, it's hard learning to do things on your own and live your own life. Depression pulls all of the happiness, joy, and love out of everything and drags you down with it. Apathy takes you over entirely, and for this album, at least from my own perspective, depression and self-destruction takes its form in the album's antagonist, the Ruiner.
Hey, babe. Yeah, you.
Piggy is a slow-paced and really groovy track, a big parallel to the energy of Mr. Self-Destruct. The title comes from a nickname the band had for another member at the time, Richard Patrick. Trent and Richard apparently had a bit of a falling out because Richard wanted to leave and focus on other music endeavors. I don't know too much about the situation, and unfortunately, frankly, don't really care that much as it doesn't relate too much to the video, so feel free to do more research on that if you'd like. Piggy includes the first instance of a lyrical motif present throughout the Downward Spiral. Nothing can stop me now.
You can't stop me now, 'cause I don't care.
Heresy opens with some frankly incredible synth. I'm not great with words, but there's just something about this melody that confidently pulls you into another world. It quickly progresses into a loud, harsh sound with aggressive drum loops and distorted guitar. It's angry, and it's not afraid to say it. A quote from Trent Reznor in an interview with You magazine published in April 1994 reads, "I was trying to explore some of the paranoia I have as a sexually active person in the age of AIDS. I guess I feel cheated for not growing up in a more liberated era. At the same time, what gets me mad is the way the right wing has used the convenience of this epidemic in helping to promote their own agenda." Heresy pretty much details the negative impact Christianity has, or just religion in general. The lyrics are powerful, screaming about how Christianity and religion is used as a shield or even as a weapon for control, even if it goes against its own teachings. Hypocrisy, plugging your ears, and walking away in the face of criticism. March of the Pigs is an energetic song, and the fastest Nine Inch Nails song ever recorded, according to Genius, that can be and is usually interpreted as being about society, media, manipulation, materialism, and power, in the hands of all the wrong people, and the protagonist's desire to dismantle and destroy all of it. A wonderful mix of distorted synths, guitar, and samples. I wouldn't really describe it as upbeat, but man is it catchy and can get anyone headbanging. Trent does state that the song is about people who you thought you could trust, trying to use you, turning their back on you, and betraying you. But I do like the interpretation of it being about something way bigger. Probably one of Nine Inch Nails' most well-known songs next to Hurt, Closer is a song about using sex as a form of self-destruction. While skimming through the Genius page for the song, I found a really interesting contribution to the page by user Bob the Demon. There's no question that this song, the whole album, and possibly the entire collective works of Nine Inch Nails is an extremely spiritual journey, a battle, an odyssey, through the suffering of self, the abandonment of God, the struggle to return home. From this context, it seems clear that this is from the perspective of a broken apart man, no longer a man, most probably now a demon, devoid of their own intrinsic inner light, needing to constantly take and feed on the light of others, to remember in the connection to God. But the experience of soul has distorted into a drug addiction, a bottomless need to suck and feed, yet never be full. This is a broken apart being, demon or man or otherwise. Sex and lust is connection to the flesh, the only identity they ever had, all they knew to be real. They are trapped in the isolation of it, looking only to deceive other beings, to steal their inner light, for just another temporary whiff, a snort of fix, before fading back into the darkness. A really poetic take on this song and the album as a whole. Now, I'm not one who watches any music videos often at all, but the music video for Closer has to be one of the coolest I've ever seen. It's just pure art. A heart beating steam, a cow's carcass in the shape of wings, BDSM, and a whole lot of floating. A segment taken from the Nine Inch Nails wiki reads, "The concept to the video is that it's an old stag reel recently uncovered. The aesthetic, atmosphere, and images in the video were inspired by the works of Man Ray, Francis Bacon, George Tucker, the Quay brothers, and most notably, Joel Peter Witkin. It was filmed using 3-color film and hand-cranked cameras to make it look much older. Additionally, there are some more modern devices included in the video, such as a television. Even if you're not a fan of the band or song at all, I'd highly recommend checking out the music video. The creation and production of it is also really interesting, and I'll leave a documentary on the behind the scenes and making of it in the description. It's a really unique, fascinating, and memorable music video." Ruiner has got to be one of my all-time favorite Nine Inch Nails tracks. It's not afraid to explore sound through pure emotion with a variety of instruments and unique samples. YouTuber Ixie Music described it as surprisingly cohesive, and the song structure unforgiving, jarring transitions, and the bridge where it just feels like the bottom falls out from underneath you, which I wholeheartedly agree with, and I'll link her breakdown video on Ruiner below. It's an angry, chaotic, pure, rage-fueled song which I can only describe as trashing your entire house when you've simply had enough. Burning stuff, smashing things with hammers, just trying to destroy everything around you. You've snapped and you're taking everything down with you. A song that feels like everything around you is falling apart at the seams, that with how far you've come now, there's no going back. All you have now is the ruiner. Protagonist knows this, absolutely present in the lyrics. It's so balanced, the chaos is so harmonious, the song so disheveled yet so confident. Probably due to the genius mixing, it's incredible how a song with so much depth and disarray isn't really muddy at all. But despite the rage and hatred present throughout the entire song, there's still a glimmer of hope. Self-awareness expressed by the protagonist that he doesn't want to accept what the ruiner is doing to him, that he doesn't want to let the ruiner take over. I've talked enough about the song by now, and I don't think I could ever fully go into detail about the genius of this song and how much it means to me. It's a masterpiece of a song, and I implore you to listen to it if you haven't already. If you're watching this, you probably already have, along with every other song on the album, but hey, just throwing it out there. The becoming details the protagonist's transformation into full loss of humanity and identity. Denial. He is fully numb, an artificial, emotionless machine. This is who he is now. He's starting to accept that there's no going back. But despite his transformation into an apathetic, fully disconnected, unbothered person, maybe no longer even human, the protagonist can't ignore the incessant, creeping voices in his head urging him to commit suicide. Despite his emotional dissociation, he's still bothered by the idea of taking things even further.
Losing ground.
I Do Not Want This is a simple, repetitive track with stiff and sharp instrumental loops, a rather quiet, or at least less aggressive, downward spiral track compared to the previous ones. Even though it doesn't stand out as much to me personally, I think the repetitiveness, whispery vocals, and occasional loud, aggressive sounds throughout the track is a good representation of protagonist fully losing hope. Knowing all he ever had is gone and there's nothing he can do about it even though he wants to. Getting closer to fully embracing the ruiner's control. What's the point of trying anymore? The last bit of the song seems like a last resort calling out for help. A small bit of self-awareness quickly running out. Maybe embracing falling further down the spiral is his only choice. Big Man with a Gun is another favorite of mine. Even though according to Trent it was written pretty quickly, I'm assuming as filler, it's a great song. I enjoy the trashy, ironic lyrics because it's so obviously overdramatic and self-absorbed. And it's a really short song that's pretty hard to take seriously, but it's catchy and I love it. I think it's an oddly charming standout track that serves as a great prelude to the next track. A warm place is difficult to describe with words, especially it being an instrumental, so I don't have much to describe what the song is objectively about, or could be about. But I think listening to just a little bit of it is enough to invoke powerful emotion. I am a sucker for ambient instrumentals. There's just something about them that, for me, kind of pulls me out of reality into complete disconnect. I know that's a kind of a universal experience with ambient music, but this song really does mean a lot to me. It's alluring, comforting, and emotional. A lot of fans apparently see it as filler, especially it being so similar to David Bowie's Crystal Japan. Something to be disregarded. But I see it as so much more. something so much bigger. Even the comparison between Warm Place and Crystal Japan, I find it kind of beautiful that Trent wrote this from a special place in his heart, and the fact it's so similar to Crystal Japan, in my opinion, shows how much Bowie meant to him. Unintentional, but maybe the song just really stuck out to him and he embedded it into his consciousness and turned it into something new. In absence of me being able to properly describe the impact this song has on me, I decided to compile a couple stories from other listeners and share what the track means to them. Iosis Drone says, "At the age of 14, long before I began to understand the concepts of ambient music or drone music, or even experimental music really, I found myself absolutely enthralled by this song. I would ride my bike around at night, find a nice quiet spot to stop, and sit down and listen to the song over and over again on my Discman. The Downward Spiral would prove to be the most important record in my life as far as shaping who I would become as a musician, as an artist, and just as a person. I think that A Warm Place would have the most profound impact on me out of all the songs on the record." Aaron Benson 2767 says, "The song has always gave me the impression of being in the midst of something beautiful, and coming to the horrific realization that it will end violently." Ghost1138 says, "To me, the concept of A Warm Place is the protagonist coming to terms with what he has done, that painful realization that he cannot fix his past. He is too far gone and he knows it. This is a moment of reckoning, the feeling of standing right on the edge before the ground gives out, that last breath before letting go and falling further down the spiral of self-destruction. To me, this is a way of saying goodbye to what little humanity you have left, and it's all the more painful when you realize the best part about life is knowing you put it together." This last one is really special. It was written by my best friend and brother, who is also a big Nine Inch Nails fan. He already is an incredibly creative and poetic person, so I had him write out what A Warm Place means to him as a special contribution to this video. "There is something so specific to me about A Warm Place, mainly because I feel like it can both convey a sense of comfort and self-destruction, and it also just reminds me of a blip of clarity that can happen when you are at your worst. I'm thinking about myself quite a bit in terms of clarity, waking up after days of just constant suffering with a clear head, and being unable to remember just what happened in the days prior. And I feel like towards the end, when it fades into a racer, it really shows how when things are bad, clarity can be so short-lived. It isn't enough, and you go right back to where you were before. And in terms of finding comfort in self-destruction, it's like, even though it is obviously bad for you, it feels like that is all you have because of self-isolation. And because you have been doing so much to yourself, it has become a new normal to you. It's like you are addicted, and the euphoria it gives you is all you can think about, and you're waiting for any chance you can to do it again and again and again, and just push yourself farther and farther to the edge. That was basically my whole thing with clarity, I think. You wake up one day in a clear head, but it doesn't last long, and you want to inflict that harm on yourself again, whether it's on purpose or not. It is just not enough, and it's hard to control that need when you have nothing at all. I think the title makes a lot of sense in terms of going back to it. It's comforting to you. It is that warm place." I have so much appreciation for this incredible contribution from my brother, and after reading other people talk about how the song affected them, I really have a newfound appreciation for it. Even with the full lack of lyrics, the sound by itself can impact people so much in so many different ways. It was also really interesting seeing other people's interpretation of the song. To me, it seems like a memory of the protagonist. Nostalgia, innocence, yearning, love. A final goodbye. "The best part about life is knowing you put it together" really stands out to me. In the Nine Inch Nails community, it was widely thought that those words were quietly tucked away in the beginning of the song. I found out it's actually just a rumor. I'm not sure if anyone actually knows what's being said at the beginning besides Trent himself. But I still find it to be such a beautiful quote, especially compared to the theme of the entire album. That everyone, no matter who or where they are and what they've done, built their own life. Every small experience you've had, every step in the right or wrong direction brought you here and made you, you. And even if you're in a bad spot, riddled with guilt, anxiety, and worthlessness, you are meaningful, and you made it this far your way, paved your path. I feel a little bad getting all emotional and sappy over this song, considering what comes up next, but maybe this was a much needed break.
Use you, scar you, break you.
racer leads the protagonist into the finality of his trip down the deepest path of the spiral. The only hope he seems to have left is for release, begging to be destroyed, to be killed, to be erased. Anything to make it stop. Gutturally repetitive. The protagonist has finally accepted his fate and is under full control and disposal of the Ruiner. Whatever happens, he's desperate for it all to end. Probably my favorite off the album, Reptile starts off with distant mechanical samples and a creeping synth, then hitting you with an incredible, unsettling drop. The protagonist is fascinated with someone or something absolutely disgusting, yet he can't help himself to it. Whatever it is, it seems to be the only thing he has left that makes him feel anything. He is fully contaminated, but he doesn't care anymore, and he knows his obsession is filthy and corrupt. But what does he have left to lose? The mechanical samples give such a beautifully unnatural feeling to the song. It's unfamiliar and grotesque, but there's something about it that just keeps you listening. It's addictive, almost a guilty pleasure. I could never talk enough about how fascinating the song is, the brilliant use of samples, the incredible lyrics, the melodies, all of it. I highly recommend Exy Music's sound design video on Reptile. I know I've been plugging her videos a lot in this, but I really do admire her videos on 9 Inch Nails and how passionate she is about their sound. The video does a super in-depth look into every bit and piece of the song, like discussing individual stems and samples totally isolated. It really gave me a whole lot more respect for Reptile and its incredibly deep and intricate sound. The video will be linked below. The Downward Spiral really stands out as a song. Instead of the traditional consistent lyrical prosody of rhyming or even a vocal melody, it's just quiet talking. The Ruiner doing what he does best, finally pushing the protagonist to suicide, almost comically impressed at the results. Like leading the protagonist down the spiral was just a game, which is how depression feels, so he's pretty real for this. Somber, bittersweet, such a soft, simple tune, illustrating the end of everything the protagonist ever had. All gone in one determined flash. I think this clip from Brad Taste in Music's review of the album sums up this song pretty well.
Well, he killed himself. I mean, sorry, he unalived himself.
I hurt myself today to see if
The song messily fades out into something else: hope, endurance, survival. The protagonist isn't immediately back up on his feet. He's not recovered, he's not healed, but he's alive. He survived his experience down the spiral. He survived the ruiner. He survived it all. The song starts out very slowly, like you're not exactly sure of how the protagonist's story ended. His story could have ended off on the downward spiral, accepting his fate at the hands of the ruiner, but it slowly fades into something more hopeful. The promise of something more. Even though the protagonist still has a long way ahead of him with recovery, healing, building everything back up that was torn apart, ditching old habits, the regret and the guilt, he survived in the end. He realized that maybe, despite everything, the best part about life is knowing you put it together.